It's time for Hog Sports Live from HawgSports.com, a division of 24/7 Sports, presented by Crain Automotive. The Crain Team's got 'em. Visit them online at crainteam.com. And now with the latest breaking updates on Hog Sports, here's Trey Biddy.
What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Well, it's a big game coming up in Little Rock this weekend, and it may be the last one in haunted War Memorial Stadium, and the first between Arkansas State and the Arkansas Razorbacks. We got a lot to talk about today. We got to dive in a little bit more to Arkansas State, talk some about the Razorbacks. Jeff Reid from AStateNation is going to hop on to help us break it down, as well as Kevin Bohannon from Hog Sports. All that and more on your Arkansas versus Arkansas State primer. The Crain Automotive Team has 16 locations across our state and is home to the Crain commitment. You'll find Ford, Chevy, Buick, GMC, Hyundai, Kia, Volkswagen, and access to thousands of pre-owned vehicles. Vehicles for every lifestyle and every budget. Even if you're not in the market for a vehicle, the Crain Team Service Centers offer the latest in vehicle diagnostic technology, and certified technicians take care of your vehicle and get you back on the road. Check them out at crainteam.com. Hog Sports Live is driven by the Crain Automotive Team.
There it is, that feeling of a big win. Yeah, that's you, enjoying your moment, because you just won big with the Crain Team. Your perfect vehicle at the perfect price. You got Crain cash discounts and more than you ever dreamed for your trade. Sure feels good, doesn't it? With 16 different locations around the state and every vehicle backed by the Crain commitment, we keep Arkansas moving. That's winning. That's the Crain Team. Visit crainteam.com.
So, Arkansas and Texas Tech will now open the 2030 season in Las Vegas. This game was originally scheduled to be in Lubbock, with a game in Fayetteville on 2030. Now they will play in Vegas on 2030. They'll play in Fayetteville on 2031, and then in 2034 they will head back to Lubbock. So, Arkansas continuing these games against other Power 4 programs, even though we're going to a 9-game schedule as we expected. And I don't know, I wouldn't mind seeing 10 games, I guess, I against Power 4 level competition anyway, including the SEC. 11 games, I should say. So, interesting news. J.J. Andrews, congrats. He got his 5th star finally on 24/7 Sports. He was already a 24/7 Sports composite 5-star, which combines all the rankings from all the different recruiting services. They have him as the number 14 ranked player nationally on 24/7 Sports. Now he is the 11th player in the nation, number 4 small forward, number 1 in Arkansas, son of Sean Andrews, legacy Razorback. Of course, Sean Andrews played offensive line, and J.J. Andrews is a class of 2026 small forward. I thought this was really interesting. $80 million in NIL approved through newly launched College Sports Commission. This is from the Associated Press. So obviously they're reviewing everything that's $600 or more. They have had 28,342 students sign up for its NIL Go platform between June 11th, when it launched, and August 31st. Nearly 3,200 representatives or agents have signed up, and they have gone through how many deals? 8,300 deals, name, image, and likeness deals, worth nearly $80 million. 332 of those deals have not been cleared to date, and 75 have been resubmitted. Some of the reasons why: contradictory deal terms, misreporting of deal terms, or mistakes in entering deal terms, and deals that don't satisfy the valid business purpose requirement that has caused confusion when the platform first rolled out. Some of these deals, so like any idea out there that it's just going to be the $20.5 million in revenue sharing and these NIL deals are going to kind of go away, some of these deals range as high as $1.8 million. So at least one person out there has a $1.8 million deal. in addition to, this is not including the allotted amount of money for revenue sharing that athletes will get. So there still are some big bucks out there. If you think NIL is dead, somebody out there has $20.5 million to spend on player salaries and also the scholarships and $1.8 million, and he's probably not the only one getting a separate little deal. So this is our last time in War Memorial Stadium. Haunted War Memorial Stadium, as I like to call it, because I compare it to a hotel a little bit. You can stay at a place that has all the amenities, all the technology, brand spanking new, nice and clean, great service staff, or you can stay at a place where somebody working behind the counter is kind of weird and, has that kind of greasy hair that looks like he hadn't showered in a while. The place claims to be haunted. The Basin in Eureka Springs, the Crescent, historic, haunted hotel. That's what War Memorial Stadium is. And even though, you have like toilets filled to the brim with urine, no running water, no bottled water, play clock stops working on the field, the game blacks out for a period of time to people at home, there's nowhere to park because it's the parking attendants just aren't experienced because they haven't been doing it a lot, all those types of things that pop up over the years at War Memorial Stadium. No internet or spotty internet, all of those things. I'm going in thinking they're going to nail it this year. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to go right in. I'm not going to have any issue going to my parking spot like I did last year. Everybody's going to have water. The toilets are going to work. The air conditioning, I know that's nitpicky, but the air conditioning's going to work. I think they're going to nail it this year for what might be the last time ever in War Memorial Stadium for a Razorback game. Some of my best memories, as I said before, I feel like people think I hate on Little Rock when I talk about, the problems that we've seen with War Memorial Stadium over the years. But I can remember a time like my first Razorback game there. I grew up in a family with, child of divorce. I lived with my grandmother, my mom, and my three sisters. So going to Razorback games wasn't on their priority list, even though I loved watching the games and wanted to go to games and stuff. It wasn't on the list for them. My first game was 8th grade, War Memorial Stadium. First Razorback game ever at any venue. War Memorial Stadium, 8th grade. Stuart Harrington and his family asked me if I wanted to go to the Miami game. Arkansas lost like 30-3. Miami won the national championship that year. The next game I went to was 1992, the first ever SEC game for Arkansas against Alabama. It was like 38-11 or something. Sat in the very top row in the end zone. And my dad convinced me that these were great seats because you could watch the holes open. There just weren't a lot of holes for Arkansas. But that was, I'd convinced myself, obviously, that those were great seats. And it was, special moment, all that kind of stuff. The first win I went to, it was Dio Vannucci's birthday, and he wanted me, Michael Sparks, and Nathan Rogers to go to the game. I know this sounds terrible. To go to the game with HOGS painted on our chests, and we took his mom's van to the game, to the golf course. My first time tailgating that I remember anyway. And we've got a Subway party tray, and we're painting. I was the O. And we got there, and our seats are about 4 rows from the top. And I remember people were smoking cigarettes up there, and you weren't supposed to smoke. This is not long after smoking was banned in the stadium. But we were dressed for the front row student section, and we were 4 rows from the top, and we got burnt to a crisp, all but Dio Vannucci, who was Italian. He just got more tan. I was there for the 2010 game, man. The 2010 game against LSU was fantastic. Think about this, though, also. This is crazy. That 90-98 season, I was a junior in college. I'd been through the 96 season, 97 season, just kind of whatever. The 1998 season, which was a magical year for us, especially being in school at that time, we used to go down to Little Rock for every game. We'd just descend on Little Rock. I mean, we go out on the town, sticky fingers, whatever, disco, get a little crazy. Who knows what's happening? We would go to and just take over. If you were in a fraternity or sorority, you would just descend on Little Rock and take over during game weekends. That 1998 season, there were only 3 games in Fayetteville that year. And there were 3 in Little Rock and 1 in Memphis. Isn't that crazy to think? Can you imagine nowadays? I mean, there are years where there were 4 games in War Memorial and 3 games in Little Rock. There were years where, all the big games were in Little Rock. It used to be the better stadium. Fayetteville was just kind of 2 grandstands. So it's kind of wild to think about how things have changed over the years with all the upgrades to Razorback Stadium, all the nice amenities, how it is the nicer venue with the tech and the amenities and all that stuff that we kind of talked about. Not that Fayetteville hasn't had their problems too. They've had some concession problems over the years. They've had some traffic issues. It's not limited to Little Rock. I don't want to make people think that I'm just dogging on Little Rock. There have been some issues there. I don't think there were many major issues on the last game, but the 2010 game, and I was at both Miracle and Markham's, one like 4 rows up this time, a lot closer to the field. The first Miracle and Markham, the next one I was in the press box for, so 2 different kind of experiences. But my favorite game there was the LSU game in 2010, 31-23. There were representatives there from the Sugar Bowl. They had these like yellowish gold suits on, and I'm following them with like 5 minutes left in the game, following them down to field level. I'm behind them, and this drunk dude comes out from the stands like into the concourse area and goes, "What are you suits doing here?" And I was like, "Dude, not the time, not the time right now." And we got down to the field, and the game's ending, the crowd's erupting. It was a great crowd, and one of those dudes looked at the other one and said, "Well, what do you think?" Pretty amazing crowd. And I knew right then, like, Arkansas was going to the Sugar Bowl. That was one that really stood out to me. I grew up in North Little Rock and Sheridan, North Little Rock Elementary School, Sheridan Junior High and High School. So that was kind of like, I'm a Central Arkansas guy, even though I've lived in Fayetteville most of my life now. But I always consider myself a Central Arkansas guy. And just some great memories there. And it's kind of bittersweet that this is the last time possibly that we'll see a Razorback game there. At the same time, I'm fine with it. And the only argument that you can make to keep games in Little Rock is that there are people who maybe don't have the finances or aren't able to travel that far to get to games in Fayetteville. And I hate that because I know it's expensive to go to Fayetteville games. I know it is, and I know it takes a lot of travel, especially for people from different parts of the state. That is the only argument that you can make, in my opinion, to keep games in Little Rock. I don't think it is beneficial for the program on an individual year to have them busing back and forth to Little Rock, to have them not open the season in Little Rock like they did the last 2 years. So, haunted War Memorial Stadium. I like that. I think it has a nice ring to it. Haunted in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, charming. And when some of that stuff happens, like sure, it frustrated me at first because I feel like I could get more work done at home than at the actual venue because of the spotty internet and stuff cutting out and not understand what's going on the field sometimes. But you just have to laugh it off, and you just have to chalk it up to the charm, if you want to call it that, of War Memorial Stadium. But I do think it's interesting. Like, we used to go to all the games in Little Rock. Like, there was no question we were going to Little Rock as a student to the games. Now there's always a slither of empty seats in War Memorial Stadium. Hopefully it won't be that way on Saturday. But, part of that could be the population of students has changed. When I was I pledged Phi Delta coming out of high school, and we had 32 people in our pledge class. 2 people were from Texas. 1 person was from Oklahoma, and everybody else was from some part of Arkansas. Some part in the state of Arkansas. Now the student population is just as many people from Texas as there are from Arkansas. Of course, there were half the students then. When I moved up to Fayetteville, I remember seeing the sign that said 49,000. There's like 100,000 people in Fayetteville now. The school is 30,000. It was 14,000 when I was there. Obviously, we've taken some looks at what we think about this Arkansas State team. Obviously, Jalen Raynor, everybody probably knows his name by now. He was 26 of 32 passing for 345 yards and 3 touchdowns in the SEMO game, which obviously they won pretty handily. Elusive, a guy that can get the ball out quick, not as big as Green, 6 foot 200, but he's a guy that Arkansas needs to pressure. They don't have to necessarily get a bunch of sacks on him, but they need to move him outside the pocket, which he should be good at, but they need to, disrupt him, disrupt the timing, hit him. Even if it's not, like, obviously don't hit him late, but, put some pressure on this guy, make him uncomfortable. He's got some weapons. Jaquez Cross, they had 3 guys rush for over 35 yards in the game. One of them had a 43-yard touchdown run, I believe. But they got 72 new players on their roster. 50-something of those guys have never traveled for a game before. It'll be their first time. Butch Jones said the other day that he had spent 2 hours going over the itinerary. Arkansas's itinerary won't be going to the stadium for a walkthrough. Teams don't really do that anymore for fear of people spying on them from the skybox, as Sam Pittman said. But they'll bust down before the game Friday, and they'll bust back afterwards. I bet it's a short post game so they can get back before midnight. But, busting down and back. Corey Rucker is a guy to watch, obviously. 59 catches for 826 yards in 2021, and then he went to South Carolina, only had 1 catch for 52 yards. It was a 52-yard touchdown in 2 games, and then came back to Arkansas State. 105 passes for 1,738 yards over the past 2 seasons. Defense, I think you're going to see some pressure from them. I just think that's the recipe for a program like that when they're facing a team, like an Arkansas. But as we saw with Alabama A&M, some people were like, Arkansas's offensive line is doing terrible. But a lot of times they were bringing, 6, 7, 8 guys. There were times where they brought 8. Like, you don't have enough people to block. That's a point where, like, Taylor Green has to, move outside the pocket or be very quick-witted and make a good play. So Jalen Raynor has been pretty successful at ASU. They're 8-5 last year. This is his 3rd year as a starter. 345 yards and 3 touchdowns last time out. I mean, that's all pretty solid stuff. So, yeah. Okay, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Blakeman's. So Blakeman's Fine Jewelry is proud to be the official jeweler of the Arkansas Razorbacks and are thrilled to support the team, and that includes providing beautifully crafted pieces for the U of A homecoming court. Built on tradition since 1987, Blakeman's has been Northwest Arkansas's trusted destination for exceptional jewelry and personalized service. Visit them at their brand new store, 3202 Pinnacle Hills Parkway in Rogers, 72758. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry, where Arkansas gets engaged. So those of you who haven't been to that new store, it is absolutely incredible. They have got, I don't know if there's anything like it in Northwest Arkansas. You got to go check them out at Blakeman's Fine Jewelry. 1987, family owned, good people there that I've known a while. I wanted to talk about this just a little bit because I saw some, score predictions predicting like Arkansas to beat these guys 55-7 and stuff. And I want to go over some stuff that they have done in the past and that Arkansas has done in the past, because Arkansas, they're not playing, like, if you look at Arkansas's past against G5 opponents, not even FCS level, but G5, they were lackluster last year against UAB, which finished 3-8. They won that game 37-27. They only had a 3-point lead at one point in the fourth quarter. Louisiana Tech was 5-8 last year. I don't know how they played that many games, but they were 5-8. And they only beat them by 21 last year, 35-14. These are convincing wins. Like, if you're talking about, like, they beat somebody in the SEC 35-14, it'd be like, man, they beat their ass. But against Louisiana Tech, that's not just like a rout. That's just a win. 2023, they only beat Kent State 28-6. That team would go on to finish just 1-11. Later beat Florida International 44-20. That's a little better. That's a lot of points on the other end, though. Not blowout territory. FIU was just 4-8 that year, though. In 2022, when Cincinnati was in the AAC, which is a group of 5, they only beat the Hogs, or they only beat them 31-24. So a 7-point win. And that was a good Cincinnati team, ranked 23 nationally. Okay, I think Arkansas State's probably somewhere in between those teams and Cincinnati that year. That team went on to finish 9-3. Real stinker for Arkansas when they lost to Liberty, which was ranked number 23. They lost 21-19. And as good as Liberty was, it's still one of Arkansas's all-time worst losses because it's a G5 program. They didn't blow the doors off Rice to open the 2021 season. They did win convincingly 38-17. That Rice team just went 4-8. And then Georgia Southern, they beat them pretty handily, 45-10. That was just a 3-9 team, Georgia Southern. But that's probably the best win that they've had against a G5 program under Sam Pittman, 45-10. So, like those going in thinking they're just going to beat them 55-7 or 55-3 or something like that probably isn't likely. However, they have lost. They have got it handed to them before in recent years under Butch Jones. 73-0 against Oklahoma in 2023. Okay, they're 0-5 against Power 4 competition. Again, 8-5 last year. They went to Ann Arbor, which was the defending national champs, and lost 28-18 to Michigan. Obviously, the Wolverines had a lot of changeover from their national title run, but they were still 8-5. The next week, they lost to Iowa State 52-7. That was an 11-win Iowa State team, by the way, last year. Ohio State hammered them 45-12 in Columbus in 2022, and Washington whipped them 52-3 in 2021. So there are examples of Power 4 teams beating the crap out of them. Arkansas doesn't have any examples, really, of them beating the crap out of other teams, except for maybe that Georgia State game. That might be the one that you would say they beat them convincingly. But again, that's a 3-9 team. This is not a 3-9 Arkansas State team. They're going to have a better season than that. Kevin Bohannon is going to join us on the Ozarks Go hotline here. For those of you who don't have Ozarks Go or it's not in your area, I feel very unlucky for you because it's fantastic internet service that just works. I've never had to unplug my router before and plug it back in. You can reach out to them at 479-684-4900 or www, the World Wide Web, .ozarksgo.net/hog. And when you talk to them, you'll talk to somebody local because it is a local company. Several different tiers of internet. I do the Gigabit Plus, which is like 2,500 megabits per second. I mean, it hums. The Gigabit, which is 1,000 megabits per second, is probably great for most families. Go check them out. See what plan works for you. ozarksgo.net/hog, 479-684-4900. All right, let's get to my man, K-Bo. K-Bo.
What's going on, Trey Biddy?
How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. Ready for a game in Little Rock.
Yeah.
Talked about it, advanced look, some of my memories from Memorial Stadium. So how much does the game mean? That was one of the five burning questions. So I'm excited about the weekend.
Yeah, we always do the 5 burning questions and keys to victory. Our keys to victory are always the same. I mean, it's penalties, turnovers, special teams, injuries, and decision-making in key moments. And, you look at the last game, obviously you wouldn't consider these as keys to victory, but Arkansas kept it pretty clean, only 3 penalties. 2 of those were procedure penalties. One of them was a hold. No turnovers. I thought that was very important. Special teams were 100% solid. There were no holes in the special teams unit. They came out of it seemingly pretty healthy, I thought. Came out of it pretty clean overall. And there wasn't really any decisions that had to be made aside from whether or not to kick that 53-yard field goal or 43-yard field goal that became a 53-yard field goal. And at that point, there's really no choice but to probably kick it. I guess you could have punted it, but kicking it obviously was the right decision. So those are always the keys to victory, but the burning questions are always a little bit different. And your first one, Kevin, is can the defensive line get to Jalen Raynor? That was a problem last weekend.
Yep. And it's going to be a problem again this weekend because of the RPO game that Arkansas State likes to run. He's a third-year starting quarterback. Had a really good season last year, even though this Arkansas State team has, 70-plus new players. You mentioned it a second ago, guys that have never traveled before. So it's going to be interesting to see, how our defensive line gets pressure on them, okay? They ran the ball for, I think 194 yards last week as far as the ASU goes. But their RPO game it's just a read-based offense. So the defensive line has to get pressure and take Raynor off of his keys as quick as possible. They've got a 3-headed monster at running back. Jaquez Cross from Fordyce went to Purdue. Then they've got a Southern Miss transfer in. And then they got the Spencer kid broke off a 30-plus yard run last week, had 3 carries for 42 yards. So they're going to have to do the job this week. And I mentioned in one of the decisions, does Travis Williams alter the defensive front any based upon if they're able to get pressure, if they're conditioned, if Arkansas State does have success? Last week they did make adjustments. They need to be made a little bit quicker this time through with Arkansas State because it's going to be a much better offense. Quincy Rhodes, they need to get to the quarterback. There's so many times that I've seen they look like they're just running into blocks. And that's one of the things that I hope to see more out of. Danny hit it perfectly the other day. 10 players he wanted to see more out of. 2 of them were Quincy Rhodes Jr. and Justice Boone. The other, it's not on Quincy. It's not totally on him. The other part of that equation, the other bookend, has to get pressure. And Philip Lee did a decent job of that last weekend.
Kevin Bohannon joining us. You can follow him. Tell him your Twitter account. I can't ever remember it. You may have to change your Twitter account. The fact that I can't remember it may be reason to change it.
That's going to be reason number one. So it's Cabo Baseball Guru.
Cabo Baseball Guru. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to say it 3 times and using the sentence to remember it better.
Yeah. It used to be my email, which you have memorized. It was Coach Cabo 21.
Yeah.
And then I just had to. The coaching part went away and the media part came about. So we'll figure it out.
So your next question, which running back will step up and take over? Arkansas, obviously, there was, they started with Mike Washington. There was a big portion in the middle of the game where they just fed the ball to Braylon Russell and then finished things off with Mike Washington.
Yeah. And this really kind of shocked me. How many 1,000-yard rushers has Sam Pittman had while he's been the head coach? 1, Raheem Sanders.
Yeah, 1,400-yard Raheem Sanders. That's right.
Yeah, so that's it. And I know a running quarterback really kind of it can change that dynamic a little bit. But if you go back to Brett Bielema, there were a couple of seasons where Alex Collin and Jonathan Williams had over 1,000 yards each. Might have been one year where it was 1,100 and then 900. So for them to get out and establish themselves as a running physical football team, there needs to be a running back takeover. I want to see that this weekend. I want to see Mike Washington come up and be the man that gets 20 carries. Maybe they don't want to split the carries up like that. Maybe they don't want to get a running back taxed this early. But if somebody is in a role, and feed the studs. If they're in a groove, get out there and let them get 100 yards a game. That's what I want to see this weekend. And the pass protection has to be better. You and I saw that last weekend. Braylon Russell allowed 3 pressures. Taylor Green took a couple of sacks, the one that led to the 53-yard field goal. There were times when they were sending 7 and 8, and it's just the choice at that point. You pick the lesser of 2 evils and take them if you're running back. But the backs are going to get better in pass protection. But I want to see one of them step up and be a guy.
Xavier Sorey did not grade out very well. In fact, I didn't think the linebackers really played it well. Like we knew going in, Kevin, that the defensive line could be a bit of an issue, settling in, trying to figure out what they've got. The linebackers are supposed to be a team strength. Right. Neither of those units were great Saturday. And Xavier Sorey, they need him to be Xavier Sorey. I wonder if Sam Pittman might have been talking about Sorey when he said we need guys to stop playing like they're not trying to get hurt so they can get drafted, because if you play like you're not trying to get hurt, nobody's going to draft you.
Absolutely. I want to see reckless abandonment and speed on defense. His nickname is Slide. That's what I asked. Will the real Slide Sorey please stand up? He's got to go out there and play fast. If you make a mistake, play fast, do it 100 miles per hour, like Julian Neal did last weekend. He was out of spot a couple of times on coverages. He ended up making a big tackle. If you miss your assignment, if you get there late, play fast. That's the only thing I want to see from the linebacker core this weekend, because they're going to have to be a big part of the defensive plan this week.
Corey Rucker and company, like Arkansas has obviously got to cover these guys. And what are your thoughts about, I guess, obviously they had some struggles last week. They got better, but Rucker's a pretty dynamic player. He had 2 catches for 59 yards. I think one of them was a 9-yard touchdown, and the other was a 50-yard catch last weekend.
Yeah, he did not have any targets in the first half, and then the third quarter, catches that 50-yard post route over the middle, safety bit up on the over route underneath, and then he got a 9-yard touchdown pass from Rayner. So that's going to be his go-to guy. But he's not 6'4", 220 like Calvin Johnson out there running a 4.3. He's got some wiggle to him. He's going to run really good routes. That's what got him an offer to go to South Carolina after 2 seasons at Arkansas State. He's dynamic down the field. He can jump for 50-50 balls. So the cornerbacks or D-backs secondary that's on him needs to stay in his hip pocket, knock him off his route. We talk about how physical these defensive backs are, especially the cornerbacks. They need to knock these guys off their routes. They're smaller receivers. His backup, Burris, 5'11", 195. Hunter Summers, 6'3", 161. He's a little light in the end right there. A little taller, but he's light. Jordan Smart, 5'10", 190. And then Chauncey, I think, is 5'11", 185. So be physical with these D-backs. They like to run slants off the RPO. If they can get physical, I think they'll cover them. But they do like to use the tight end as well. Fortenberry caught 4 passes last weekend. It was only for 19 yards, but they'll do flat routes just like they use Arkansas tight ends. So cover the whole field. Jacquez Cross caught 5 passes last week. So there's a lot of weapons out there. They got to cover the whole field.
And we'll get you out of here with this one, Kevin. But how much does this game really mean? I mean, some of the talk has been that Arkansas State's the team that's wanted this game. But, like, Arkansas is a team with something to lose.
Yeah. And Arkansas needs to take that mentality into this. There were some people that made the comment to me last week that the players just didn't really seem up for it. How do you not get up for a season opener? How do you not get up to be one of the, a small percentage of players that get to go out on a Saturday and play in front of 70,000 people? Not many people get to do that. So don't take that for granted. This will possibly be the last time that they play at War Memorial Stadium. That's going to be tough to see, but times move on. It hasn't kept up with the technology updates or anything, and they moved a high school game out of that stadium because they couldn't keep up with it. So it should mean something. It should mean something to exert your authority over a smaller school in state. They're not UAPB. They are a FBS school that's in a G5 conference. So go out there, act like you're the better team, play like you're the better team, and get a convincing victory. Help yourself and help the fans understand why this should be a good football team.
Yeah. And real quick, final score. How do you think it's gonna play out?
I'm sticking with my 45-24 Hogs.
You're close to me. I'm 45-21. I got them covering, you don't.
That's right.
All right, brother. All right. We'll talk to you later, Kevin. Appreciate you hopping on. All right, everybody. That's Kevin Bohannon, and has done a great job for us since we've added him to the team over at HawgSports. I'd like to tell you real quick about our friends over at Walker Brothers. They just opened a new store in Rogers. They've been in Fayetteville at 577 Millsap Road, Suite 6 for a number of years, but they got a big, really nice store in Rogers. I went there the weekend before last. Really impressive store. 3503 South 55th Street, Suite 101. Tremendous amount of clothing for men. Like, where can you find great clothes for men? This is where to find it in the state of Arkansas. Like, you're coming up for a game or something, you need to stop over either at their Rogers store or Fayetteville store and check out what they got, because you just can't find a lot of this stuff like at the mall or something like that. It's rare to find. Peter Millar, Johnny O, Horn Legend, Divot Sportswear. They've got the curly tail on the Peter Millar, the curly tail on the Peter Millar, the Johnny O, the Horn Legend, Divot Sportswear. That's the Walker Brothers little hog logo. And also Peter Millar's got the Crazy Hog logos as well. So go check them out. Try out their freshman experience where you can buy a package and get to dressing like a grown-up. Go visit our friends over at Walker Brothers. All right, we're going to bring in Jeff Reid now. Jeff Reid is with AStateNation. Jeff, how's it going, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing real good. I appreciate you hopping on the show with us. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you been over at AStateNation? How can people follow you?
Oh, gosh. I think I've been at AStateNation about 15 years, something like that. My Twitter is at ASU Jeff Reid. Our website, our main Twitter for the account is at AStateNation @. And I've been gosh, I've been covering Arkansas or sports in Arkansas since Noah's Ark floated, and then I've been pretty much part of the ASU program in one way or another, or since I was a student there, starting in the fall of '77.
So it sounds like ASU came out pretty clean as far as injuries in the SEMO game.
From what I could tell, yes, they're all very hush hush, and they don't have to start doing injury reports until they get to conference games. But from what I saw, I did not see anybody leave the field and sit on the sideline. The one person who did leave went back in, so I think they're in pretty good shape. Now you don't know, sometimes guys that get hurt and they'll play hurt, and they never come out of the game, and I'm sure Butch is real quiet, and he's not going to make any changes to the depth chart for something like this for people to see. So I would say everything, but from what I can tell, everything does look pretty clean, and they should be pretty close to 100% for Saturday.
Dramatic amount of turnover this day and age in college football. ASU has 72 new players on their roster. Over 50 of those guys have never even traveled for a road game. And this may be, considered a neutral site, what have you. But Butch Jones said the other day he spent 2 hours going over the itinerary. What in your mind has changed the most with this team? You've got some continuity, obviously, at quarterback and skill spots. But what has changed mostly with this team, and also a new defensive coordinator as well?
Yeah, obviously the defensive, the two big areas that's changed is defense, starting with the coordinator and starting with a bunch of new personnel. They've got 3 ends that were there last year. There's a linebacker who was there last year, and there's a couple of guys in the secondary who are playing who were there last year. But almost everybody else is on the defensive side is new. Then, of course, offensively, it's a rebuilt offensive line. I think I told you the one returning starter, he didn't start last week. So it's I think overall we will find out that it is a deeper and more athletic roster. That's one thing that Jones has always spoke about, competitive depth, what he calls it. So when you have to go to your 2s and your 3s that you've got guys, I think what we'll start seeing on the G5 level because of the portal is a lot of those guys are going to be younger and they're going to get chances to play. So, and that's what they are. They gave up almost 200 yards in those latter moments of the fourth quarter the other night, but they had new guys in there. They were trying to give them a chance to get acclimated to the game and the game speed, and SEMO, which is not a bad FCS program, kind of took advantage of them. And so they had 2 touchdowns there at the end, but when they started subbing, it was 42-10, and ASU pretty much had things under control. But defensively, Griff McCauley, he was an assistant at Ole Miss, and I don't even know if he's even on the field. I think he was on the field one year, but a lot of times he worked in the off-field position, analysis position. Somewhat a bit more aggressive, but like I said, we've only seen 60 minutes of play here, so we don't really know what's going on. But I think that they feel pretty sound about the decision to hire him. There were some major issues, but it's going to come down defensively to the offense, to what they can do in the line of scrimmage. And that's Arkansas is massive there, and ASU is not as big. So we'll just see. But that's improving on the front line has got to be in the key spot for them, and I think they felt like they've addressed that pretty good. And they've got decent depth there that they haven't had in the past.
Yeah, and Griff was with them last year as linebackers coach. And
that's correct, yes.
Yeah, and he's a Pete Golding disciple, I guess, after spending some time with him under Ole Miss. So probably some similarities that Arkansas fans would be familiar with. Yeah,
I think Coach Pittman even mentioned that in his pressers the other day. He said that there's some things that they do that are similar to what Ole Miss does. Mm-hmm. But like any new coordinator, when they get a chance, they usually adopt some of what they've been taught, but then they kind of have their own ideas too. So, and we don't know what those ideas are, in 6 weeks, we can probably have a better idea. But and I imagine they'll probably show quite a bit more. I would think Saturday, because it's a pretty big game.
That opening drive in the first game, Jalen Raynor hit Chauncey Cobb for a 65 or 45-yard touchdown, then had 300 more passing yards the rest of the game. Third-year starter coming up. This is the third year. What have you seen from him? Just, I guess, what you hear around the program and what you were able to observe in that first game, maybe areas that he's made the most improvement from year 2 to year 3.
Yep. A little history. He came in game 3, I think, of his freshman year. They were playing an FCS, and they were struggling a little bit. They were winning, and they were going to win. But, I mean, he immediately ignited the program, and then he goes to UMass and has a huge game, throwing for 6 TD passes. And then he has the big home win against Southern Miss that kind of got that program rolling. And then last year, I mean, he had a really good freshman year. I don't know what exactly was, but he did not seem to meet the expectations of, or at least my expectations, until maybe late in the season. But then again, everybody had, they had all summer to prep for him. He wasn't a surprise anymore. And then you had that, but the other night was the most composed I've ever seen him. And he had some miraculous escapes that I still don't know how he got out of those. And that's one thing Butch addressed. He said, we won't be able to get away with that the next 2 weeks, because people don't know, number 17 or whatever they are, Iowa State comes to Jonesboro next weekend. So you've got 2 pretty solid programs back to back. It's going to be a major challenges for them. But he just looked like a different guy, Trey. I mean, everything, his reads were good and everything. And I will correct one thing Kevin said. If Chauncey Cobb is 5'11", I'm 6'3". He's about 5'6". I mean, he is small, but he's fast. He's a little bitty dude, but he was a guy that surprised me. He came up. He's always one of these guys that had a little fight in him, as a smaller sized guy. But he made some really nice plays, and he'll be a big part of the offense.
We'll get you out with this. I know you're a busy man. What are your thoughts on this game finally being played after all these years, and how do you see it playing out? If you got a score prediction.
I know a lot of people are happy, and I've said this in a couple places. I don't think it's nearly as big a game as it would have been 20 or 25 years ago, and a part of that because the teams that Arkansas State has gone to play. Now, it's big because of just the historical significance, and it's never happened. And I know some people, some A-State people that are just they've been foaming at the mouth since this was announced, and they'll be there. I think it's obviously it's early and it's hard to get a good read on the team. I think A-State played a better team than Arkansas did. So that may have helped ASU a little bit because of the level of competition. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. I'll be surprised if it's not. I think I predicted something like 45-25 or 48-28, something like that. I think there will be offense. If Arkansas hasn't fixed the defensive issues that they had in game 1, the Red Wolves will score. They have a lot of 10 different guys caught passes the other night. I mean, there are people who they don't mind. Raynor will spread the ball around, and we'll see. And they're experienced in the backfield. I don't know how the offense. This will be a good test to see what the offensive line really is. But I think it's going to be good. I think it'll be a fun day, and hopefully, it's exciting enough that both sides will want to do it again.
Yeah, that would be wild. And it would probably be in Fayetteville, I guess, if they did it again. Well,
yeah, I think that's pretty much what Sam said. Yeah, and if he's there and has any input in it, will be, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you hopping on. Like I said, I know you're a busy man, but I hope to see you on Saturday in Little Rock.
I'll be there.
And, yeah, maybe we can have a little chat.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you, Jeff. All right, everybody. That's Jeff Reid. Again, you can follow him. shoot, I forgot what his Twitter was, but he said it at the top of the show. I apologize. But some good insight from him, and of course Kevin Bohannon on this matchup coming up. And we need to get to some questions. I've got some fun stuff coming up too, because I went over some comments from the last game and some of the stuff on our message board as the game was unfolding and stuff. And I want to get to that too. But first, let's get to our buddies at Bet Saracen, because it is the wager wagon. We're going to make our picks coming up next.
It's a fine barbecue, Joe.
My own secret recipe.
Where's Super Sid? I got him on the FaceTime.
Where you at, Sid?
Hey, I'm in Milwaukee at the Bucks game.
How are they playing?
They're pretty good. They just need to get healthy.
Speaking of playing, what's shaking in Bet Saracen?
Ooh, great offers, Pat. Like for new players to Bet Saracen, they'll get $125 to use for new bets.
Gotta love Bet Saracen.
All right, it's time for the wager wagon. Last week we went 4-2 on our picks. I picked 6 games. I meant to pick 5. So this week I'm going to pick 4, so it balances out. My OCD can't handle it being a game off. So we're going to pick 4 games this week. We're going to go with Missouri -6.5 over Kansas. I like that it's not 7. I mean, basically, I think Missouri handles Kansas actually pretty well, even though they've got some experience, obviously, at quarterback. Ole Miss over Kentucky. I've got Ole Miss -10 over Kentucky. And this is a game that I went back and forth on. I feel like Ole Miss is going to have more firepower. Kentucky is Zach Calzada. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith there, I guess, but I just think Ole Miss will put up enough points. But SEC games with double-digit spreads, I usually take the underdog. I'm taking Louisiana Tech +37 against LSU. I just think that's a lot of points, and sometimes I think we get a little carried away. Like, here's an example. Last year against UAPB, Arkansas went out and just thumped those guys, just throttled them 70-0, scored on every possession. I think somewhere in the mindset of a guy like Taylon Green and maybe some other players who were new to the conference and stuff thought that UAB was going to be of the same ilk as UAPB. Like they were just – and it's a big step up, in my opinion, going from FCS to G5. It's a big step up. And so – I think some of these big numbers, I think fans kind of look at that a lot and see, LSU will just kill these guys. But I don't know. 5 touchdowns seems like a lot, even against Louisiana Tech. So I'm going to take Louisiana Tech +37 against LSU. And then, of course, the big one, Arkansas and Arkansas State. The latest line I saw is Arkansas -23.5. Last week I picked Alabama A&M to cover that line, and they did. This week, I'm going with Arkansas to cover. I've got them barely covering, 25-21. Those are the picks this week. We're going to get back to a normal number. And we'll have 10 games, 5-5. That sits better with me personally. I need that symmetry. 5s. I know, I'm weird. Okay. Let's go to these questions now. Do I want to first go over some of the highlights from? Okay, so I went back and looked at the comment because people said like you only take questions from the Razor's Edge, but you should sign up at HawgSports. It's 60% off right now, and you get your questions in there. But I do go over and look at the YouTube comments. Some of them are always very entertaining. At Joffre501 says, the only thing I've ever learned being a Hog fan is that Hog fans hate Hog fans more than anyone else. So a lot of truth in that. It's kind of like the dysfunctional family. Like you're just, you're watching a soap opera and it's just like, the husband and wife are always at each other. The kids are awful and all this stuff. And then like they get out in public and it's just like, how are y'all doing? That's kind of how it is being a Hog fan. Like we can, and it's like with your family too. Like you can sit there and rag on your brother or your sister and just like, y'all are awful to each other. But somebody else says something about your sister and that's a problem. right? We've seen Twitter. We've seen Arkansas Twitter go after people, even though they say the same things we say about ourselves, Elmer Fuddpucker, 5387, says, we would get a Jack Crow Citadel situation with Pittman should A-State pull off the upset, ? Maybe Pittman would magically disappear by the following Monday. Even if that happens, I don't know that it's going to be of a big benefit to fire your head coach after that game. It certainly didn't help back in the Jack Crow days after they lost to the Citadel. They did beat Tennessee that year, but they also only won 3 games that entire year. So I don't know if just getting rid of Sam Pittman immediately before they get home would be the situation. But part of my head, and Danny and I talked about this, is are we prepared if stuff goes crazy in this game? Because you play Arkansas State 50 times, they probably get you a couple of times. The ball doesn't bounce straight up and down, as Houston Nutt says, as I like to say. I ought to just say as I say, because I say that all the time now. Razorback Zach says, what were your thoughts on the DL performance? I'm highly concerned about the front four, and we may have to run 3-4 LBs in a hybrid scheme. I'm not ready to just completely bail on them. I think they're probably going to figure some stuff out still, but DL was, to me, the weak point going in from a depth standpoint. That doesn't include Cam Ball. I thought Cam Ball was pretty aggressive. Mike Freeman says Omega Blake is going to be so good, and where's Rohan Jones? Danny West had a good question about a good story about 10 Razorbacks we want to see more from. If you told me 10 guys are going to catch passes and one wasn't Rohan Jones, as I phrased it to Sam Pittman in the press conference on Monday, I would have been really stunned. So I would expect them to make an effort to get Rohan Jones the ball. I think he's a guy that a lot of people are going to know about, and I was really surprised that he did not have a catch. Brad Have says, Brad, have you noticed Sam seems down at his pressers, just low energy out of the gate, seems worn out and dejected? Sam has always been kind of that energy in press conferences. There may be, if he's upbeat, then that's a little different. But the most interesting is after a scrimmage, he comes in there, his voice is a little higher. It's a little higher octave. And he'll, because he's been screaming, I guess, the whole time. But Sam usually has that vibe about him. So I don't think that's any different than from day one. I remember the first time when he was hired as head coach, I was just thinking I can transcribe him as I go. I don't have to slow it down to 0.7. Vegeta Salin says, if they lose to Arkansas State, I'm not watching NCAA football for the next 5 years. Pooh Bear the Plug says, I would like to think so. Our football players' NIL budget is larger than Arkansas State's entire athletic department. I don't know about that. So some of the best X comments. This was from Mike Davis, who I temporarily blocked, Mike, but you're back just because you were being ridiculous. He's at Hogs 1968. I posted before the season started, this is going to be no better than a 6-6 season. If Arkansas is lucky, all you Kool-Aid drinkers, including you, Trey, can make all the excuses you want, but Arkansas will never win big with Sam Pittman, who's just a career position coach. I would just like to say for the record to Mike and anybody else, I predicted them to go 5-7 last year. I predicted them to go 6-6 this year. What are you talking about? Why am I drinking the Kool-Aid? Yes, you should be excited about football, as I've said a million times. Let them get your hopes up and let them crush you. But I don't see how that makes me a Kool-Aid drinker to say that they were going to go 5-7 last year, and they actually proved me wrong and went 6-6. Mike says, Trey, grow some, starts with a B, ends with a grow some, and start asking some hard questions about this football program and why 5-6 or 6-6 is even being accepted in year 6, and why Sam Pittman, with all the elite coaches on his staff, don't know what he's doing. People get angry during the game, and I love it. I love the anger and the roller coaster of emotion and the excitement when things go the way you want them to, or like you didn't expect, and then the heartache, and then just taking it out on me and everybody else. It's fun. Good stuff, Mike Davis. You're unblocked, by the way. It was just a temporary block. Tom, Dick, and Harry, why is there never a fire T-Will chant going? Dude's defense has been dookie every season since he's been here. Cool, he can rap, but he can't coach D. Big homie CJ says, soft as tissue, guys. Soft as wet tissue. This is as the defense is giving up that first drive. Andy Harrison says, if you were waffling on that 4-8 or 8-4 prediction, that is actually what I said. They'll be 4-8 or 8-4. The defense just settled that dilemma. Sean there says their O-line dominated our D-line and gashed our secondary. Our defense is bad. Imagine what SEC teams are going to do. Ole Miss might score 70. War Pig Suey says Hogs are not a good team as we suspected. Start the Fire Sam campaign. BetX comments, after Arkansas was held to a field goal in the second drive, I thought you said the defense was the problem last year. Veteran OIF veteran 06 says same crap product, ready for basketball. Our game thread, Hog, which is HAW6, said, haha, what the H do our insiders watch at scrimmages? Like, come on, Trey, you telling me that you thought this defense was even decent? So we weren't allowed to go to any scrimmages. They didn't let us go to any of the scrimmages in the spring or any of the live tackle stuff. And I said Arkansas will score a lot of points and the defense will give up a lot of points. And I actually said they're going to be in a lot of high-scoring games. So, again, I'll be your whipping boy, Hog 6, HAW6 anyway. Lord Porter 94 says, so Alabama going to get them like 400 yards of offense today versus – or Alabama A&M is going to get like 400 yards of offense today versus our 800. And Henny 09 says, this was my fear. Hearing the offense look good meant our defense is just bad. That's why Mike Washington looked good. No pressure, Taylor. We just need you to score 60 every game. Maybe 2 wins for this team. This bloom is off the rose again. You all see you were all sold another bill of goods. Worst defense in 20 years. 20 years is strong considering how bad they were. Just a couple of years ago, they gave up almost 300 yards passing. And we forget about the John Chavis era. Danny Darko says, I'm not saying that wasn't doggy doo-doo or that our defense might even suck, but goodness gracious, y'all just give it a few possessions. So we ended it on one just to show everybody doesn't overreact. Danny Darko didn't. That's good stuff. Entertaining. My cheeks are hurting a little bit. It's really fun to follow it during the game because people are just so vicious, just like coming right at you. I hate this team. I hate everything about it. Have y'all seen that TikTok? I hate this team. I hate everything about it. None of y'all help me. Hand me the screwdriver. West Hog 21 has a good question. Did we ever learn who the green dot is on defense? No. I forgot to ask that. I assume it's one of the safeties. That just went completely overlooked by everyone in the media because we asked about it going in. We never got a clear answer. Chad Razorback says there seems to be a pattern with struggling versus teams we should easily beat. You think? Right before the first big game of the season. Rice before Texas in 21, Missouri State before A&M in 22, BYU 23, UAB 24. Do you think Sam likes to skip ahead and game plan for the bigger fish during? So I will say I asked him about that in the press conference, how much time they had spent. 5 different practices they spent going over Arkansas State schemes. They didn't spend the whole practice. They just spent segments of practice going over it, and a lot of it's what they thought it was going to be. Obviously, some more familiarity with the offense. Defense has a new defensive coordinator who comes from Pete Golding's school, so a lot of carryover from Ole Miss. So in this one, it sounds like they recognize. I doubt that they spent a lot of extra time in fall camp on UAB last year. You know what I mean? Or any time at all on UAPB in fall camp. Augustus Caesar says, if we lose, does Pittman make it off the field? I think he does. I don't think it looks good for the long term. But I think, I don't know that there's a big benefit other than like make someone pay for firing him like that. Will you call me and check in on me? Yes. I think I still have your number from a long time ago. Thanks in advance. NEA Hog 12 says, should Arkansas play this game? No. How many points does ASU need to score to signal to the defense? It just isn't good at all. I mean, if they get I would think if they were to score like 4 touchdowns, that would be a pretty bad sign on the defense. I think they'll score 21. I don't think that's an outstanding sign. I think that's about what I expect the defense to do based on my perception of the defense. 28 would be like, whew. A Runner 1 says, will the Hogs be wearing red in A-State and white? I do not know that exactly, but they will be the home team, so they should be in red. How much Story of the Year says, how much truth do you think there is in coaches holding back things for better competition? I absolutely think they do that. How much of the playbook are we going to be holding back for Ole Miss next week? 100%. Or is that nonsense and we'll open it up for ASU? I think they'll probably keep some things in their pocket, but they may be like, well, we got to do this, but I mean, you have different things for different opponents. Sam Pitt or Bobby Petrino back, I remember, basically saved some stuff for LSU that he didn't put on film. And LSU was at the end of the year in 2010, like saved some stuff from what they learned from the game, what they did the previous year and applied it, didn't do it in any other game until then. So I think you have stuff for opponents, and I'm sure Bobby has the same philosophy. OPP Hog says, down with OPP, if we lose, I'm going to make a fist and punch myself in the face. No, it's not healthy, but maybe it is. It's definitely better than just like pushing it down into your gut like we do. Just push it down, as Bill Burr used to say, until it comes out in just utter rage or disease. Razorback R says, in your opinion, Trey, do you think this will be the last game at War Memorial Stadium? Yes. For a while. I mean, I could see some kind of scenario in the future where they're like, they're years from now, they're going to tear it down or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if they'll ever do that, but I know HDN wants to be wants there to be a game there played every year, but I think he's in the minority. I mean, I love Houston and everything, but yes, he's in the minority. It's a road game in our own state. Yeah, I don't think it's good for the team, not in this day and age. It's just different now with HD and just more access and all that stuff. I think it's just different. Plus what they've done up in Northwest Arkansas in the stadium. And when Houston Nutt was in Fayetteville, it was, they didn't have they had a lot, but they didn't have the closed-in end zone and, 2 big screens and all that stuff. OPP chimes in and says he was told it will be the last game. Kiro Small Enthusiast says, are you worried about rushing performance against Alabama A&M? People need to chill out on that. Mike Washington was a turf monster away from 40-yard. Yeah, he was. No, I'm not. I thought that they would go for over 200. They went for like 192. I'm not. I think the offensive line is going to prove it long term to be much improved, and we'll see. But I have made the point before, like, why is Mike Washington this stud running back? Like, he did fine at New Mexico State, but it was like 700 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Never had a 1,000-yard season. He's a redshirt senior. Like, are there a lot of redshirt senior running backs across college football who are just dominating? Not really, but things happen. I mean, like Missouri had that kid from FCS or Division II or something a couple years ago who ended up leading the SEC in rushing out of nowhere. Sometimes you just need a different or the right environment, I guess. Gumpster says, if we lose, a lot of this, if we lose, how big of a jump in subscriber numbers do you predict this site will have? I've always said, like, for a site like mine, there's 2 ways that we grow. You win, and you just keep growing year by year. Or you live in mediocrity and lose, and the numbers go down, and then you have a coaching change, and you get back up to where you would have been. It doesn't really make any difference either way for me. It's just mediocrity, lose, coaching change, or win. It's the same. It's the same for me either way. But yeah, I mean, nobody runs a coaching search like we do, but I'm not even thinking about that. I am going into this game with expectations. War Memorial Stadium is going to be the best it's ever been. They will have water. They will have, what are the things you need? Food, shelter, water. They will have those things. I'm convinced they will have food, shelter, and water for us, a place to go to the bathroom, a way to watch replays on the big screen. a way to see the actual play clock and not being kept on the field, I think they're going to nail it. And I think Arkansas is going to go in and play well. That's where I am. That's what I'm expecting. And if they don't, then I'll let them crush me, and I'll feel that because I'm human. Jay Lee 95 says, "What would you have to look like for the defense to show some corrections, install some more confidence against a slightly better team?" What would it have to look like for the defense? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there. Gumpster says, "What do you see as a priority of the coaching staff being for this game?" Keeping starters and key players in the game to really cement the score. I think ideally, like, you just beat their ass and get them out. That's what I would think, because you got Ole Miss the next week. Hogzilla says T Breezy. I'm T Breezy. Worst seemed animated and annoyed at the questions, didn't he, about the struggling defense on that first drive? What conclusions could fans draw? I thought he seemed annoyed on Tuesday at the press conference. And I thought everybody seemed a little annoyed, to be honest. I don't know. Did you guys watch the player press conference on Tuesday? Like, we're asking questions, it's short answers with no substance. Like, it was almost worthless to even have them there. I've never had an interview with Larry Worth where he wasn't just talkative and nice. And like, he seemed like he didn't want to be there. Now, they were just coming off a practice. It could have been a practice where they busted their ass. You know, it's a hard Tuesday practice. That could have been the case. But none of those guys seemed like they wanted to be interviewed on Tuesday. Now, I don't know what that was, if they were told, like, hey, we're not talking about this, or just didn't want to be there. It was a hard practice or what. But, you know, maybe Caleb Wooden was, you know, his normal kind of self, but Larry wasn't, I know. And I don't feel like Braylon really was. Maybe Kobe was, but Larry definitely wasn't. Burkus Maximus says, Trey, do you expect to see a heavy dose of Braylon Russell in the second half Saturday? That would be nice. Like, I'd like to see Braylon. Like, to me, Braylon's a guy that can just keep steady moving the chains, you know. I know he broke off a long run against Mississippi State, but I don't view him like as a guy that's just going to take it to the house. But, like, he can get a, 20, 30-yard run and stuff like that. But I like to see him, I like to see Braylon getting a groove, But Mike Washington, those are the two running backs. Like, sure, I like Rodney Hill, but he is, to me, the distant third running back on this team right now. Hogboy1987 says, Sam said the pressure is Arkansas to win this game. 100%. I think that's the first time Sam admit that there's pressure. Yeah, maybe so. How do you feel about him publicly stating it? I mean, I think it's nice that he's honest. I like when coaches are honest, and Sam usually will be, so I don't have a problem with him being honest. I think it's interesting, like we put these coaches in these types of categories where they don't say crap. They just give you coach speak answers, and it's just a bunch of crap every single time. And I think about guys like when Brett Bielema was here, man, Brett would say some stuff, and we'd give him hell about it. Like, the media would give him hell about saying something, or when something backfired on him, we'd throw it back in his face. Of course, these guys don't want to say anything. We make them eat those words at every opportunity we get. And that's got to be frustrating for coaches. It's frustrating for me because, I like coaches that speak their mind, that have a good sound bite, that are entertaining, and that's, Sam, for the most part, will be very direct and honest if you ask him a question. Now, he's going to lie. Lie is a strong word, but he's going to say stuff that's not giving away exactly what they're doing from a competitive disadvantage standpoint. That's a good way to put it. But all these coaches have to do that. But as far as most stuff, Sam's pretty open with us when we ask him a question, and I appreciate that from him. Cody8811 says, you going to send Connor to the Duke game? Planning on it. Jurassic Pork says, he was up there last year in New York. Jurassic Pork says, who do you think could overlook this game more, with Arkansas looking for revenge against Ole Miss next week, or A-State hosting a ranked ISU team, especially since they don't have a ton of Arkansas kids to make this game? I don't think anybody's going to overlook this game. If anybody overlooks this game, then they got to get checked. There is no reason that Arkansas or Arkansas State should look at this game any other way but a huge opportunity and an important game, and a game that you would suck to lose. J. Cole 927 says, do you think Sam gets caught looking ahead? Same question to Ole Miss or Notre Dame. I don't think so. Better not. Like, they need to come out and perform well in this one. So hopefully that happens. Do you think we'll see more of a conservative game plan in order to just win this game and get out of town, says Goblins 1. Hope not. I think they need to beat them and beat them soundly. Hogwild 97 says, Trey, what, like, you come in with like a conservative game plan and you get, and Arkansas State's like firing on all cylinders. You don't want that look. Hogwild 97 says, Trey, what SEC coach could drink the most Coors Lights? Well, Sam's the first one that comes to my mind. I think he probably could. I think Sarkisian's sober, so not him. I don't know if I think Kiffin is too. I think Kiffin might be. Probably Pittman, I guess. Second, is there a worse coach cliche than Butch Jones, champions of life, when he was at Tennessee? I heard him on Chuck and Bo. I was driving my daughter to school this morning, and it was just, and he actually said, "I don't mean to use coach speak," and then a lot of coach speak and stuff. So, all right, well, that's the show. I'm going 45-21 Hogs. I'm going in expecting just greatness in War Memorial Stadium, haunted War Memorial Stadium. I think we covered everything that we needed to cover. Did we leave something hanging? I don't think so. I'll be in Little Rock. I'm going to head down game day, stay with my mom, go to the game. Yeah, that's it. That's the plan. So I hope to see you there. If you see me, come up and say hello. There's so many people sometimes like, yeah, I saw you so-and-so, such and such place. And I'm like Uncle Leo, you don't say hello? Just come up and say hello. Like, I'll talk to you. Like, I love when people do. I think it's fun. I like interacting with the Hog fans. Obviously, I'm doing this right. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining me. Hogs 45-21. That's the show. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.